Laura Hateman, the President of Democratic Women of Greenville County. Next week, the state legislature will convene for the second half of its two-year session. On the agenda will be S-368. It's called, and I have to read this, so it's quite lengthy, Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity Act. So you and I might call it the Anti-Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Act. This bill will impact all state agencies and programs, reach into classrooms and lunchrooms for businesses, both large and small, and impact every municipality. The bill is broad and deep. Last spring, the House held public hearings on a similar bill. Not a single speaker stood up in favor of it, and yet it passed by a big margin. Now the Senate takes up this bill that comes directly from the White House and slavishly follows the Trump federal executive order. Under that order, decorated military leaders, white, black, male, female, have been fired, along with experts in finance, public health, science, foreign policy, and cybersecurity. While other states have implemented legislation limiting diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, particularly in higher education, we are the first to extend it into every single corner of business and government. We are on the verge of being one of the first states to roll back decades of change and negate hard-fought battles to remove barriers for the disabled, for minorities, for women, for LGBTQ. Do the majority of our citizens want to go back to the 40s and 50s? I really don't think so, but that's where we are moving. Today we have three outstanding speakers who are ready to fight this dangerous bill. Your voice and the voices of your neighbors, your friends, your family, and your coworkers are crucial. So I really thank you for coming today to learn more about this. And let's get started. I'd like to welcome Representative Chandra Dillard, who will introduce our first speaker. Chandra is one of our warriors in the State House. Year after year, she fights for good governance and against bills like this one, taking on grossly uneven odds. Thank you for all you do, Chandra.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you to the Greenville County Democratic Women for convening us over this very important topic, which all of us have a stake in. It's my pleasure to be here and to be with colleagues and friends. It is true, Laura said earlier, that the South Carolina House, the Republican majority of representatives passed a bill last year, H 3027, so we have a Senate bill, and we want you to know we have a House bill, which is titled Anti-Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Bill. This bill passed last year, and it will prohibit state agencies, local governments, and your local governments are city, county, school boards, and universities from violating what they call federal discrimination laws with initiatives promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. The legislation that passed out of the House, the vote was 82 to 32. It passed on partisan lines. And we're still here talking about that very issue because of its importance, and our speakers will tell you on a day-to-day basis how this could impact your quality of life, your opportunities, your ability to compete, your ability to show your talent and have the best talent on the field in this state. And I don't think any of us want mediocrity. We don't want to go back. And so now our bill, the House bill, resides in the Senate, and our best hope of defeating this bill lies with the able-bodied leadership of senators like our senator, Senator Carl Allen. Senator Allen, I have served with him now at the state level for 17 years, side by side when he was in the House. Great mentor. And so we know that Senator Allen fights for second chances. He fights for seniors, he fights for children, and all citizens who are looked over and left out, and the least of these. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our Senator, Senator Carl Allen.
Certainly, thank you, Representative Dillard. I have to utilize that protocol because Representative Dillard has two of her colleagues with her, and she's sitting in the middle. One to the left of her is a minister, Representative Jones, and then the governor to the right. Now, I tell you, this is no political recording going on. Chandra, you know, Jesus was in the middle. Certainly want to thank the Democratic women and Laura as leader for convening this. It made my job easy because they said my task today is to talk about the timeline of this bill, to talk about the process and advocacy. But I cannot just jump right into that. I promise not to go over my time, but when you heard the name, Ending Illegal Discrimination, and I had to take a sandwich break right there. Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity Act. That alerted us in the Senate, that alerted us to that our colleagues were up to something. Putting lipstick on a pig, so to speak. This, I have to say, is kind of like the junior to that big ugly bill they talk about. If you don't take the junior, the cousin to the big ugly bill, because what it does and who it affects, Stacy, is it affects nonprofits who have boots on the ground, that are creative in trying to make change, to help underserved communities, to help the least of these, to help individuals that don't have a chance at education. And how does it do that? Well, it requires annual certifications. It says you must be certified, have annual certifications if you're a group and you receive appropriations from the state. That's the money. So if you get the money, honey, you've got to play by the rules of this bill and this legislation, and that's why we've got to slow it down. We've got to stop it. We've got to be heard. You've got to come to Columbia. You've got to be in the balcony. I'll talk a little bit about that advocacy, about how you make it happen. But when you think about it, let's look at this. It says that if you are promoting or supporting, buzzword, supporting diversity, equity and inclusion in hiring, training, programming, contracting, and funding decisions, then you go afoul and can be penalized if this legislation goes forward in its current form in the state of South Carolina. In the great state of South Carolina, they want to not allow you to do programming, tailor educational opportunity for the poor, those that the core Democrats support to lift up. And they talked about other states passing diversity and inclusion legislation. I ask you, where are those states at in the rankings compared to South Carolina? Right. We want to have one that's so robust, but yet we're at the bottom in education. You'll hear a little bit more about that. Is it necessary? The Attorney General tells me that he's gonna have to spend an extra $1 million to try to implement it. Is it necessary? The Department of Administration says that it's gonna cost them a few FTEs and $250,000 to implement it, if you want to talk about the money. So, with that being said, you can tell where I'm at on this legislation. I've looked at what the House sent over in April. I've looked at the legislation that the Senate now has, and we started work. We're not waiting till next week. We've started work because we too, like the House, are outnumbered Democrats versus Republicans. I'm optimistic when you ask me about the timeline. I've looked at, we're gonna need your advocacy. But when you look at, as I've shared with the governor over there, the Democrat, the co-sponsors of the bill, you don't see any, at this point, of any of the main senior, you know, us with bald heads and things, the gray hair, the pudge. You don't see many of the seniors that have signed on to the bill. It has 12 sponsors, but I don't see any major supporters of it at this time. And why do I say that? Because in the timeline, that's important, because you've got Luke Ranking out of Horry County, that's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. He's gonna listen to President Alexander. He's gonna listen to Finance Chairman Pillar as to when and if you schedule this bill ahead of other bills. We're there talking about hate crime, we're there talking about infrastructure, and we're there talking about health care bills that need to continue to stay ahead of this legislation. So I anticipate that we'll have some success at not taking the bill up immediately. But if it comes up, and when it comes up, if there's no way in the rules, of which I serve on the Rules Committee, if there's no way in the rules to kill it dead on arrival, and we have to take it up, that's where you come in at, advocacy. And I always tell people the most impressive thing of my years in serving in the House and in the Senate is how you advocate. There is no substitute for you. About 3 more minutes long. There is no substitute for face-to-face dialogue with the legislature. There's just absolutely no substitute. That's your first order of business. If you cannot do the face-to-face, whether that's in their home district where they live and reside, or in Columbia as a group, then your next best is a phone call, voice, live, not recorded, voice. Then if you're unable to obtain that, then you look at letters. When I say a letter, I'm talking about a couple of paragraphs of why you support or do not support the piece of legislation that you're advocating on behalf of. The cards, these generated cards are great. We get a lot of them. You know, they already have a typed print that says I'm opposed to this, and you just sign your name. As a last resort, it's better than nothing, but it doesn't rank higher than face-to-face, voice-to-voice, or letter. And then think about it. If you know a legislator, or if you know someone who knows the legislator, that means you do your homework and find out what groups they're a member of, and who they hang out with, things of that nature. Ask them, if they're your friends, to speak to their friend. Identify, there are some Republicans that are wise enough to know that it's important to have friends that are Democrats. do your homework, find that out, and try to have an impact on that legislation. The last thing that Laura asked me to speak about is the climate. I sort of started out with that when you start talking about some of the less senior members who are co-sponsors, the 12 that are currently on the bill. The climate in the Senate is such that it is more of a deliberative body than the House. The House, they'll say that they have more energy, like chitter-chat and talk, while you got some of the guys and ladies in the Senate. They've probably been there longer than you and I have been in the world. A little bit laid back, but when they say something, they mean what they say. And the word is their bond. What you will see on this legislation, if and when it gets through the process of coming out of the Judiciary Committee, meaning that it may be public hearings, meaning that it may be a subcommittee assignment, and then it be a full Senate Judiciary vote, moving it to the floor. What you will see is Democrats like Hutto, like Allen, like Williams, like Jackson. Those are the 4 top senior Democrats. What you will see is we will coalesce together and make sure that the poor and the underserved are protected using experience, rules, and debate. And if nothing else, before we will let a bill like this pass, we will listen to you and your amendments. Make amendments to the bill to make the pill, what we call a poison pill, not so hard to swallow. We oppose it. That's the advocacy. We need you to show up, show out, be heard in the manner in which I have suggested. And you understand the climate. It is a Republican-dominated climate. 46 is 12 of us, and the rest of them. We will try, and we've had some success on the abortion bill. You will see us try to divide them, separate them. We call it, as I look at the media, we call it the crazies. You got some of them, you got some not so conservative, and then you got some staunch MAGA. We do our homework and try to divide and see where we can pull some of them with us, and we've had some success. It may be because of gender, as you saw with Sandy Sin and Penry Gustafson and Sheila and Marjorie Bragg and our Democratic sisters. And so that's the process that we will use. I don't want Laura to say I talked too long, so I'm happy to see everybody that is here, and I'll cut it at that point so we stay on time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Allen. Good afternoon, and thank you to the Democratic women of Greenville County for hosting this important forum today. I'm Stacey Mars, chair of the Greenville County Democratic Party, and it is my honor to introduce someone who embodies what it means to fight for our public schools and not against them. We are living in an unprecedented assault on public education. At the federal level, efforts to illegally dismantle the Department of Education and slash essential staff in offices that protect students, including students with disabilities, threaten our most vulnerable learners, and strip support from classrooms nationwide. And here in South Carolina, far too many Republican lawmakers have embraced policies that defund public schools, push vouchers and privatization, and prioritize culture wars over classroom needs. Against this backdrop comes a leader whose life and work actually reflect the purpose of education, serving students, supporting teachers, and strengthening communities. This leader is Sylvia Wright, a Democratic candidate for South Carolina's State Superintendent of Education. Sylvia is a product of our public schools, born and raised here in South Carolina, educated in our classrooms, and now a lifelong educator with more than 20 years of experience from middle school classrooms to district leadership. She knows firsthand the joy, the struggle, and the promise of our schools because she's lived it. She has spent years listening to teachers and students across this state, advocating for better classroom conditions, higher teacher retention, equitable funding, and transparent leadership. Today, she'll speak to one of the most pressing issues facing education in South Carolina, the harmful impacts of anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion legislation. These measures undermine our educators, distract from the work that matters, and trickle down to every student in every classroom, from funding and grants to the very environment where learning takes place. So please, join me in welcoming a fierce advocate for public education and a tireless voice for our children and educators, Sylvia Wright.
Thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Laura, and the Democratic Women for this opportunity. So I'm Sylvia Wright, and I'm running for State Superintendent of Education because it's time to do the right thing for public schools. I oppose Senate Bill 368 because it's an anti-student bill that uses the words illegal discrimination to restrict fairness and equity, and it limits the ability of public schools to support students, teachers, and families. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Americans with Disabilities Act, they already make discrimination illegal. According to Senate Bill 368, illegal discrimination means supporting the needs of students with disabilities and students who struggle academically because it's giving them an unfair advantage. Under this flawed definition, an entire group of young girls lost the opportunity to learn more about school careers in engineering. The Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day program at Ashley Hall in Charleston was canceled because it was considered illegal discrimination. When I was a school coordinator, we used Review 360 data, and it told us that a group of girls would benefit from a mentoring program. Mentoring programs are considered illegal discrimination. Under Senate Bill 368, mentoring programs, after-school programs, academic intervention, it's called illegal discrimination. But these programs are actually student-centered, evidence-based actions that provide every student with access to high-quality education. Out of fear of violating Senate Bill 368, the focus will shift from helping students succeed to eliminating programs that are designed to support teachers and students. Senate Bill 368 turns protections against discrimination into a tool for dismantling lawful student-centered programs. Districts may avoid targeted supports like targeted reading and math intervention programs, small group instruction, and after-school and summer learning programs out of fear. Senate Bill 368 weakens support for teachers, making it difficult for them to support their students. Policies should encourage schools to support students and families, not make them afraid to do the right thing. Children are not one size fits all. Schools need flexibility to respond to the different learning needs and backgrounds so every student has a fair chance, not an advantage, an opportunity. South Carolina is 43rd in the nation when it comes to education. Kindergartners are starting school not knowing their colors, not knowing their numbers. Only 39% of kindergartners were school ready. It's time to do the right thing for public schools. Under Senate Bill 368, families and students will suffer from reduced services, community resources, and support that are essential for fostering student success. This bill jeopardizes funding for programs that provide services to support students who are struggling academically. Instead of strengthening civil rights enforcement, the language in this bill creates uncertainty, leaving schools afraid to meet the needs of diverse learners, which ultimately harms students instead of protecting them. It's time to do the right thing for public schools. Every student deserves a fair shot, which means access to high-quality education no matter where they live. When schools are afraid to provide academic support, students fall behind. They fall through the cracks. Ladies and gentlemen, this will harm South Carolina. Opposing this bill is a stand for fairness and equity to ensure that all schools meet the needs of the diverse needs of all students. The focus should be on strengthening their students, strengthening schools, supporting teachers, and expanding opportunities for every student, instead of limiting local decision-making control that weakens the ability to support students. It's time for our legislatures to stand up and collaborate with teachers, schools, families, and communities to provide better outcomes for every student in South Carolina. As superintendent, I will stand for classrooms where every student is respected, supported, and has a fair opportunity to thrive. I'm Sylvia Wright, and I'm running for State Superintendent of Education, and I oppose Senate Bill 368 because it's time to do the right thing for public schools. For more information about how you can help me, visit my website at right2026sc.com. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Representative Wendell Jones. You know, every time somebody gets up here to introduce somebody, they start off with, "It is with great pleasure." I can honestly say that about this guy. I thank the world of Dr. Jermaine Johnson. I can only think of one thing that we don't see eye to eye on is he continues to think that the College of Charleston is better than Wofford. Maybe one day we'll resolve that. But we do want to welcome you to the upstate. You know, Jermaine, not too far away from here is my district. And one of the greatest things I think I was privileged to do in my lifetime, I was actually a Little League football coach, the Southside Steelers. And it never failed, Jermaine, that every year we'd get some kids who were incredibly talented, had tremendous potential. They just didn't know the game. And so as the coach, since the kid didn't know the game, but I knew his potential, it required me to do some things for that kid. It required me to spend some time with that kid that maybe I didn't spend with the others. Some of those kids had disadvantages, so sometimes it took for me to go pick them up and take them home. I was willing to do that, not because I was giving preferential treatment to the kid. It was strategy. I wanted the whole team to win. And I know that if I didn't consider the potential of the group that may not have had the same advantages of my more skilled players, then I would have damaged the outlook of the team. And so because I focused on those kids a little bit and did some exceptional things, again, wasn't preferential, it was strategy. Guess what? In our first year, our team went to the championship. The team won. South Carolina needs a governor that wants the team to win, not just pockets of people. A governor that realizes that we may have to do some stuff here, a little stuff here, just so that we can make sure that the whole team takes the field in the best shape that's possible, such as DEI programs and things of the like. We need that. And I think we found that in you. So it gives me great pleasure to invite my brother, my friend, our next governor, Dr. Jermaine Johnson.
I tell y'all, my friend, Representative Wendell Jones, he loves to see me tear up on this thing. Y'all, I'm honored to be up here with you all today. I hate it that it's under these circumstances that we have to gather here today to discuss something that is so near and dear to me, so near and dear to everybody who's in this room right now. And if you all did not know who I am, I believe some of you all probably saw that video of me fighting against this diversity, equity, inclusion bill on the House side. And when I fought against that bill, see, the background of that situation is Representative Annie McDaniel. She put up an amendment that said no public dollars should go to white supremacy programs in this state.
Woohoo!
And these individuals who are in the House, who we consider our friends, who say that they love us, they say they know our children, they know our wives, they know our families. These individuals who say they're gonna stand up for what's right in South Carolina, they did nothing. They sat there. And as I'm looking around thinking that somebody's gonna stand up and stand up for us, stand up on our behalf, the silence was deafening. And when that silence was so deafening, one of the House members got up, walked in front of the Speaker of the House's desk, put his hand up like this, said, "Move the table." See, when things are important to these individuals, what they'll do is they'll stand up and say, "Hey, we don't think we need this amendment here because we cover it here," or "we stand against this." They usually will condemn some bad things, but this thing here, this amendment here, they said nothing. And I was so offended. I jumped up and I ran to the front, and everybody, including Wendell Jones over here, was trying to calm me down. They saw how angry I was. I was so mad and I was so hurt that I ran up there to the front and I gave that speech. And after I got done giving that speech, what you don't see in that video is I walked out to the back steps of that State House and I sat down and I cried on those steps of the State House because I was so hurt. I was so hurt by the individuals who claim that they love me, who claim that they support my family, who claim that they support my wife and my children and my communities. I was so offended. And I sat there and I cried. But the first person to come check on me to see if I was okay was Representative Wendell Jones. My friend came to see how I was doing. And he sat there and he saw me cry out there. And he said, "We're gonna get through this. We're gonna figure this out for the people of South Carolina." And then people began to come to the steps and say, "Jermaine, we won." And I said, "What do you mean we won?" They said, "Jermaine, they pulled the whole proviso out of the budget. They're gonna get rid of this proviso and they're gonna rewrite the whole bill." And that's exactly what happened. They got rid of the whole thing. And as I was getting up to come back into the State House, the Republicans one by one started coming up to me saying, "Jermaine, we apologize. We did this in poor taste. We should not have done it this way. We want to work, we don't know how to fix it, but we want to work with you to fix it. We want to fix this situation." And with that being said, silence is not good enough for us. We can no longer afford to be silent. Because silence, it breeds complacency. And we will continue getting the same things that we have always gotten. But all it takes is one person to stand up, to call it out, to build a movement of people across not only this state, but across this country, to stand up and say, "I don't care about getting reelected. I don't care about doing this or doing that. I don't care about my seat. I care about doing the right thing. I will stand for what's right all day, every day. Even if I have to stand alone, and they've seen me do it. I will stand there and call it out, call them to the forefront to do what we have to do to get what we deserve." And this is the problem that we have here. They passed a different type of bill, and now it's over in the Senate. And I know that we have Senator Carl Allen here who's gonna do the right thing. He's going to stand up for us. He's going to fight. No matter if we are outnumbered, we must continue to fight. Now, the thing is, what most people are not understanding about what this bill does. If anybody in this room knows anybody who's suffering from sickle cell anemia, this predominantly affects African Americans. If this bill passes, there will no longer be any targeted campaigns to talk to African Americans about going to get checked for sickle cell anemia. If you know anybody in here or in your family who has suffered from breast cancer, there will no longer be any more targeted campaigns for women suffering from potentially having breast cancer. If you have young people like the PACE Center for Girls, headquartered in Florence, South Carolina, with a 98% success rate on keeping young girls out of DJJ, helping them out with mental health resources, that organization is going to shut down. If you have kids who we know their success rate when they go to school and having a black male teacher, and you know the statistics behind that, the Call Me Mr. program is in jeopardy. We are talking about women here. Now, understand, South Carolina, we are always in the top of the list that we should be in the bottom of, and at the bottom of the list that we should be at the top of. But I can tell you one thing. Without a shadow of doubt, South Carolina is fantastic at doing one thing. We are fantastic at creating boogeymen. Every year, we have a new boogeyman. One year, it's CRT. That's the boogeyman. Another year, they're coming for our guns. Another year, it's pregnant women. This year, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Every year, we have a boogeyman. But the underlying factors here in diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is an assault on the rights and opportunities of women. This is what we're not talking about. So they want us to think that it's a black and white issue. They want us to think that it's African Americans getting all the opportunities and taking away from them and taking their places in these colleges. But this is an assault on women. Because when you start talking about minority-owned businesses, this is white women, this is black women, this is Asian women, Native American women, this is Hispanic women who are losing these opportunities to create generational wealth for their own families, to show that women can do just as much and sometimes better than men. This is an assault on women. Every year, we have to go back to the well and fight for the rights of women. When is it going to change? When are we finally going to stand up and demand our dignities? This state is 51% women, a majority, but yet you are underrepresented in the General Assembly. They are not allowing you to use your voices. It's time for women to take back their power. It's time for you to use your voices. It's time for you to stand up and say, hey, y'all don't have it right this time. You don't. We don't have it right this time. But it's time for us to do better. It is time for us to stand up. And I can tell you, I can promise you right now that as your next governor, next year, I will do everything in my power to either stop this or reverse it, because it's about us. It's about every last one of us who is in this room right now to be able to show our children that tomorrow will be a brighter day, that tomorrow the sun is going to shine, that tomorrow the opportunities will be bountiful, that tomorrow we will be stronger together. They want to keep talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But which one of those definitions offends you? The one about the beauty of diversity, the beauty of our differences, the one about the beauty of making sure that everybody gets what they need to succeed for opportunities? Or what about inclusion? The chances for everybody to feel like they belong. South Carolina, we have always been a progressive state. We are the state with the first Black Supreme Court justice. We did Brown v. Board. We have stood up time and time again because that's what we do. We stand against injustices. We stand against racism. Here in South Carolina, hate will not win. And we will not allow it to take hold of our families. We will not allow hate to take over what we know is right. Because in 2026, in November of this year, we are going to elect the first African American governor of South Carolina. And I want you to understand this. I'm gonna leave y'all with this. I was in the House last year, and in the House, we were having the judicial elections. And one of the Republicans from the upstate, he came to me and he said, Jermaine, I want you to support this person to be on the Supreme Court. Can we count on your support for this person? And he followed up with, she will be the only woman up there. We don't have women on the Supreme Court. And this same Republican individual, in the same breath, went and voted for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion ban. Same person who tried to use diversity, equity, and inclusion to get me to support something, then voted against the same thing that gave her the opportunity in the first place. They will continue to vote against their own best interests until we stand up, until we speak out, until we call it out. So what I need y'all to do in here today, I need you to believe. I need you to believe that tomorrow's gonna be brighter. I need you to believe that we have the numbers. I need you to believe that we can do better. I need you to believe. And if you don't believe, I don't want you around me. And I'm being honest. Because I'm in a room with a bunch of believers, I believe. Believers. Because when you believe in something, that brings action. When you believe in something, you go that extra mile. When you believe in something, you knock on that extra door. When you believe in something, you make that extra phone call. When you believe in something, you send that extra text. When you believe in something, you give that extra $1. When you believe in something, you do more. And I need you to believe that in South Carolina, in 2026, in November of this year, we're gonna build us a new South Carolina. God bless y'all.
I believe. If we can take just a couple minutes, I'm going to blather while we pull a few chairs over here. So my first question would be for Senator Allen, because I got almost a warm fuzzy feeling, Senator, and I have to say thank you so much. You stayed within your 10 minutes, and I feel like that makes me special. But I got sort of a warm fuzzy about your thoughts on how the likelihood of this bill passing. You actually said it this way, but some of the big guns aren't signed on. I wonder if you can expound on that a little bit.
So quickly, to expound, I was having discussions with some of the colleagues in Columbia, and then as we looked at the current status of the bill and the co-sponsors of that bill, there are 12, and currently, none of the senior Republicans are co-sponsors of the bill. That gives you some optimism. That could change on a dime once we get back in session and deals, or I should say strategies are cut, not deals, but strategies are cut to go forward. However, I'm aware of other legislation that some feel strongly about, and Democrats are pushing infrastructure and healthcare and education bills to go forward. So until we see the senior Republican leadership push this legislation, it gives us optimism that it will not be something that will jump ahead. Certainly not the chairman of the judiciary going around them to bring this out of the committee so that it can get to the floor. That process does have to take place.
Thank you. Question, what is the argument, I guess this is for anybody really, what is the argument for the DEI ban that is based on federal funding for SC being eliminated?
This is just really a play to kiss Donald Trump's behind. That's all it is. Anything that Donald Trump asked for, he's getting out of South Carolina in this current moment. And that's the issue, because this bill would have never come through the House had Donald Trump himself not called South Carolina to say, pass this bill. It had no legs. It was going nowhere. Donald Trump himself called and made that request. And that is the issue that we're having in South Carolina. Whenever the individual in Washington, in DC, says he wants something, we have a bunch of people who are afraid to get primaried. They're afraid to stand up. They're afraid to call it out. I had one individual who came and sat next to me. He said, Jermaine, I agree with you. I agree with everything you're saying, but if I vote this way, then I'm gonna get primary. And I said, well, you're a coward. I told him straight to his face, you are a coward. He says, well, at least you didn't call me racist. I said, well, I don't think you're racist, but I think you are a coward. You are a coward. You're more concerned about a position. You're more concerned about power. You're more concerned about prestige than you are about saving people's lives. That's a problem. And that's what we're dealing with every single day in the state.
And I don't think we need to forget when he talks about the friends to Donald Trump. You know, I always like to say that, you know, my baloney has a first name. D-O-N-A-L-D. My baloney has a second name. T-R-U-M-P. But my point, Governor Henry McMaster issued December the 3rd, 2025, an executive order addressing a very similar but narrow issue, saying that they cannot contract with agencies, and basically it addresses in a targeted way race-based contracting and set-asides, and we know that trickled down. And now they're taking a bigger bite at the apple to try to get into education and to try to get into government political bodies with this type of legislation. So if they can cut your neck off through the appropriations that normally go to you, they will do it. And he's exactly right. It's coming from the White House to the State House. And hopefully we can put it in the outhouse.
So Sylvia, why would after-school programs be affected by this bill? if your grant application, if you said black, white, brown would benefit, why would this be forbidden?
Because it's based on targeted data. And that's what the illegal discrimination is. So with this bill, any after-school program, mentoring program, any program that's based on a targeted group of students to support them, that's illegal discrimination.
Okay. Another Sylvia here. The person says, you are correct. This bill outlaws things that are already illegal. Could we call that out? Opponents of this bill talk about merit. We probably should not talk down to them, but can we not highlight how this meritless bill is misguided and disruptive?
It's saying, what was the question?
Can we highlight how this bill is, what ways would you suggest we can use to highlight how this bill is misguided and destructive to education?
Okay, so that's actually a great question, because we need to call out what they're saying illegal discrimination is. Because right now, it's framing it as it's protecting students, but it's doing the opposite of protecting students.
Right.
So that would be, for whoever asked that question, call out what illegal discrimination is, which means supporting students, those after-school programs, mentoring programs, anything to help students become successful. They're saying that's illegal discrimination. So, calling that out.
Gotcha.
If I may add, just quickly, you're talking about first-generation students, low-income students, underserved populations, and when you get to faculty recruitment, when you look out in this audience and you see educators and retired educators that I see out there that can address issues for our students in our communities that are having issues that need targeted programming. This bill says that they cannot use targeted programming to help teen at-risk kids in the teen center, after-school tutoring, things of that nature. And that's what we need to highlight, that impact on those low income.
I have a question about the cost of the bill. I was kind of struck, it seemed kind of low cost actually, $1 million here and $500,000 there seems kind of underfunded. But do we know what the cost would be to communities, to nonprofits, to other organizations? Is there some kind of metric we can look at that we can focus in on?
If you remember, the very first bill that was put forward was going to cost the state $86 million. And once they got a little bit of backlash about what was going to cost the taxpayers, that's when they went back to the table to now hide where the cost is going to come from. It is still going to cost us millions of dollars. They are just hiding it better now, where it's going to come from. And with that being said, we are already seeing nonprofits have to shut down. They are already closing their doors. Schools are already losing funds. The College of Charleston, which I talked about during my speech, they took $7 million from them because they had a program supporting African American students. They are taking money from all over the place. Everybody is going to be affected by this bill, and not even if the bill passes. They are being affected just with the presentation of the bill.
Right.
They are already changing names of departments. They are already shutting down programs. We're losing money and we're being affected by this. But one thing I wish they would have done years ago was take this same approach when they refused to get rid of that Confederate flag on the top of our dome at our Capitol, which was costing us money with the NCAA because they didn't want to come to South Carolina. We need to look at all this stuff. But we have a serious issue here, but we're already losing money, and it's going to cost a lot more.
It's interesting too, because I imagine the cost, not only to the state for oversight, but to the organizations that have to do annual evaluations of their programs. That's got to cost a pretty penny too.
Laura, also while you're doing that is think about this oversight, this annual certification that's required, and then go one step further to the enforcement. How does South Carolina police this annual certification and these requirements? The bill puts that responsibility, what I alluded to earlier, in the Attorney General of South Carolina. And so the Attorney General's office will be the one enforcing and potentially bringing up violations of individuals that have used targeted base. And so the Attorney General was saying, at a minimum, if he had a couple of FTEs or a couple of individuals to enforce, he's still talking about $1 million. If this thing goes down a slippery slope, that millions, that number gets up quite high.
Are there any institutional allies we can be recruiting against this bill? Businesses, chambers of commerce, nonprofit, oversight kind of organizations? What should we be doing on that front to get more foot soldiers in the Army?
Well, the business community has always been the entity that makes the state move. If the business industry in South Carolina says, listen, this is going to hurt us, then they won't do it. Because when it hurts that bottom line is when they start changing the tune on certain things. Like I said before, when the NCAA came out and said, listen, we're not coming to South Carolina until y'all do something about that. Guess what happened? It changed, right? And these are some things that we need to look at, even with the hate crimes legislation. How did it pass the House? The business community got together and said, listen, we want to pass this. Now it's passing through different counties all across the state. When you start getting the business community involved, that's what we can do to bring awareness to the situation.
Did the business community get involved when the House was taking this bill up?
So the ACLU did. I believe some chambers of commerce got involved as well. And there were a few other organizations that were involved with this because they were trying to bring awareness to it. But then when you have individuals in the House who are now threatening organizations and threatening schools, saying, hey, if you come out and say this, then we're going to take this from you, or we're going to do this from you. And I talked about College of Charleston, how they lost that $7 million. The Institute of Higher Education in South Carolina actually sent out a survey to every single institution in the state. And every single institution in the state said that they were not doing anything with diversity and inclusion or CRT, except for the College of Charleston. They were the only ones who were honest about what they were doing to help support people, and they were punished for it. And because of that, other schools are now just lying or just doing something different. So they're afraid of the pushback, of the blowback when they come forward, because as we're seeing in Washington, if you oppose this man, what happens to you? They're cutting your pay, they're getting rid of you, you send somebody against you, so people are afraid to stand up.
Timothy Snyder, who wrote on tyranny, calls that capitulation in advance. It's pretty scary. This isn't directly about this bill, but I think it's an interesting question. Are there other language clues in bills? And I gotta say here, the South Carolina Legislature intentionally makes it almost impossible to follow the bills if you're just an average, everyday person. And I think they do that on purpose. Everything's written in all caps. There's no punctuation. It's impossible to figure out what the bill is about. So are there other language clues in bills that we can look out for, or resources you could suggest that would help us identify harmful legislation that we should be concerned about, get us moving before things get too far.
If you look at this bill, by banning any activity that use the words designed or implemented in reference to protected characteristics, the bill goes well beyond prohibiting discrimination. The wording game that you see the legislature playing is intentional, so that you have ins and out or gray areas that cannot be enforced. It then gives a chilling effect on individuals or agencies, in this instance, the DEI bill, because if you are an agency, if you are a nonprofit, if you're in government, you're not gonna step down that slippery slope if the bill and the terminology used is not defined specifically, so that you know when you step out there, you're doing a violation or you're not doing a violation. And that's where the money comes in, because at that point, the grants that you're trying to get to help our children, you stay away from reaching for those grants because you don't know whether or not you're having that violation. So the word game, I want to say, Laura, is intentional in the General Assembly to keep some gray areas so that you keep the legislation sort of intact or in place.
There are some good websites, I will say, that translate our legislation into English for readers. So when I send out a after event email, I'll send the links to those because they're helpful to me. This is not, I don't think, really in the wheelhouse of the superintendent of education, but I think it's still an interesting question. Sylvia, can you talk at all about the government just changed the status of a number of 8 or 9 professions, became non-professional. One of them is nursing. Educators were also one of them. In fact, 8 of the 9 or 7 of the 8, I can't remember how many it is, are all women, majority professions. Can you talk at all about the impact of that as it affects education funding and the shortage of nurses?
Well, I can speak on the funding part, because now that, it's not considered a profession, then grants, scholarships, ways for students or people who are interested in that profession, now they're losing funding for it. So it's gonna make it harder for people who, don't have a mom or dad who has the money to send them to school. And so that's where the issue comes in, to limiting who gets educated and who doesn't. Because if they don't have the money, and they don't have the grants, they don't have the scholarships, because it's not considered a profession, then it's gonna increase the shortage. You have people who are interested in going into nursing, but they can't afford it. And that's the big issue.
That impact South Carolina's education and teacher shortages?
Yeah, for sure. And to speak on what's happening right now, they put a limit on student loans. So I'm currently at the University of South Carolina pursuing my doctorate in education. I already got a scholarship or not a scholarship, but funding, federal funding for my fall semester and spring. At the end of my fall semester, I received a letter saying that you no longer qualify for the funding that they already gave me for the spring. So lucky for me, I'm in my last semester, so I only had like 4 hours, so it's like $2,000 something. So I was able to afford it. But the students who aren't able to afford it, they're dropping out of school. I've heard of 2 cases at Claflin where students did not return or not returning this semester because they don't have the money and the cap was put on student loans. So, yeah.
So let me just ask you, are you getting one of those PhDs that you get in 2 weeks, or? I'm just curious. anybody can answer this question, you should be president. How are we going to get our young people interested and motivated in voting in our upcoming elections?
Yeah, give me that one.
I'll go first. So I actually have a college division, and we've connected college students all over South Carolina. We're doing a college tour, and they are getting involved in the whole process. And part of my vision for after I become state superintendent, I want to create a college division at that level. So we're getting students engaged right now, but after elections, we usually push them to the side. Okay, we're done, but not this time. After I'm elected, we're going to continue to keep these college students, these young people, engaged in the process.
Awesome.
I feel like I'm the young people whisperer. They are fired up. I had somebody send me a text message, and it was a text message of a screenshot, and it was her nephew he was 22 years old, and he was living in Kentucky, and the screenshot was like, "Auntie, do you know who this man is that I just saw on the Breakfast Club?" And the follow-up message, she was like, "Yeah, I know him." And he was like, "You need to do anything and everything in your power to help that man get elected." And I'm coming to South Carolina to help. I have put screenshots all over my social media pages of young people saying that they've never voted before, but they are now gotten registered to vote just so they can vote for me. I've got people all over my social media saying they tried to go vote for me last time that we had an election. They were like, they were in the line, they had to turn people away because they were thinking they were coming to vote for me, the young people. Young people lined up to come vote for me. I also am doing the same thing as Sylvia over here with going on the college tours and talk to these young people as well. The thing is, these young people, they haven't seen anything like us in a long time. They haven't heard anybody like us in a long time. And because of that, we're giving them something new, something fresh, something energetic, and a belief that their vote truly is going to matter this time. Yeah. And when you got somebody like our next Congresswoman, Courtney McClain up in here, I aspire to be like her on social media.
Yes.
I'm telling you, they're fired up, they're ready to go, they're ready to vote, and South Carolina's own day.
Just quickly, Laura, we've got to go out to where these young folk are. We've got to go out and meet them where they're at and bring them into the process. And the way you bring them into the process is you identify how they are impacted, how the process itself, whether it's student loans or whether it's expungement of criminal records, you've got to show them that if they participate and it impacts them directly, if not them, then somebody in their family, so that they have some skin in the game to want to involve themselves. And that's how we get them into the system.
Well, Mr. Governor, I'm sure I speak for Stacey Mars when I say we're happy to have you up here to make your coattails available to all our candidates in the coming year. So hope to see a lot of you. Okay, if there aren't any more questions, I want to thank everybody for coming, and I really hope that we have got you fired up, you've got more information. This is a really important thing. Denham is going to be doing more on this as we go forward, and we know that GCDT will be also. So start talking to your friends, start calling your legislature. They'll be back in session on Tuesday. Start calling them. You don't have to just call them once and call it good. You can be a pest. So I thank you very much for coming. I hope you will be the army that we need to stop this bill in its tracks. Thank you very much. Have a great day.